I just got hip to a new thing in Glendale, which I had never heard of, a food thing.
Which one?
You probably know about it because you're the Middle Eastern dude.
Was it Rafi's?
No.
Carousel?
Zengayalov hats.
Oh, don't know.
It is
Nice.
a
Stumped me.
hot herb-filled flatbread. Flatbread and like 16 different herbs, 15 different herbs, greens in a supple, griddled wonder.
I want a version of this podcast edit that's just you saying herbs and supple.
I love herbs, supple herbs.
I want that version.
The last 2 nights I've been asleep before my kids, and it's been really great. And getting to the studio sort of 6:30 and not checking email, not checking Instagram, just working and knocking out a couple of songs before anyone gets at me.
Yeah.
And establishing a kind of a tone for the day. And it's been really great.
I had posted on the Instagram today, we have a podcast coming out soon. What would you like to hear about? And someone wrote in and asked about routine habits and the concept of the flow state.
This is something I practice all the time. I haven't really done the Rob Kanowski 5:30 a.m. thing, though. I know Dale Becker does that a lot of the time. I mean, these are I guess these are people with families. This makes more sense, but also at the same time, scientifically, apparently you hear better at that time. Your ears are turned on at the best and the most heightened sensitivity to sound at that early hour. I think before 8:30. So that makes sense for an engineer to want to work early. And then you have the distraction part of the emails. And I mean, when I start at 8, no one's hitting me up for things usually till like 10 or 11 from labels. So I always thought 8 was early enough, but the 5:30, I mean, that's 3 more hours, right? Before that stuff kind of comes in. I like the idea. My routine gets me to sitting down at work probably at 10 a.m. after a bike ride, a meditation, 2 espressos at different times, 1 in my home, 1 out somewhere on a walk, maybe meeting Michael for it, meeting another friend for it. There's that routine that gets me to sit down. So I feel like my day is kind of primed for feedback and collaboration with people. So my morning is taken care of for myself, because I think if I can't give myself time at all, I'm not going to give my best efforts and work to the clients. So I think that's enough time for me to get out of the way. But now I'm wondering, just hearing that, is if there's kind of a middle ground where you wake up, start some work, then you do that routine, and I throw that. I just love the idea of experimentation with all these kinds of things. Yeah. I mean, last month was no caffeine month. First time since I was 17 that I didn't have caffeine for a whole month. And as you guys all know, it didn't really end up great for me. I kind of despised the lack of caffeine, and I didn't really feel like myself. And I'm definitely back on it. Yeah. But it was worth the experimentation. I'm in a no meat experimentation for health reasons. I'm not even sure that I need to be, but because I was told I might need to be, I'm giving it a shot. And we try these things for our body. I think there's reason to go deep in experimentation, and not for a week at a time, not for a few days at a time. Like, go in, do 4 weeks, do 8 weeks, do these longer versions of this practice, because you have to be able to make it a habit, to call it a habit. And it takes, there's probably science on this. I don't really know the exact amount of time, but I think you need at least 30 to 60 days to call something a habit, because like every diet fad is like, or every fad diet lasts 60 days and then people revert every time. It's like, that's the majority rule, I guess.
You do have to give certain things some time.
Yeah.
To judge them, for sure. And then, and also, like, might not be the moment. Like in 10 years, it might be the move. I wanted to go back to the morning, because my mornings have evolved a bit, where I used to, because we are on the West Coast, I used to get up to service like the PMC Instagram, like earlier in the day. So as soon as I woke up, I would go to the phone and I would try to just get in, answer questions and people that are reaching out like through the Instagram DMs. I would check my emails. I would just sort of get that all behind me and then do the stuff I need to do. And then, and while I was doing my sort of morning routine, I would have, COVID news or The Hill or like Rogan or somebody on in the background, sort of like keeping abreast of the current events. And I just stopped doing that now.
Right.
So I don't touch the phone. I don't do anything. I don't look at anything like that. I may play music, I may not, but I accomplish all these things I need to do to take care of myself in the morning. And I found that when my mind wasn't grinding on COVID or what the economy's doing or learning about race relations, I was actually able to appreciate these small things that I was doing for myself in the morning. And it really changed the tone of the morning and how that moved me into the day. I don't start the day running anymore.
And that's not to say that none of the other stuff you just discussed matters, right? They matter, and they deserve the proper attention when you're capable of giving it to them, right? And
but I can't do anything about COVID. I can't do anything about these things, and and it's not even the issues, right? It's the way they're presented. It's the hype. It's the intent. It's the headlines.
Yeah.
It's the intensified version of these things that just has an effect on my sort of disposition as I approach the day. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's not the topic, it's the way it's handled.
No, of course.
I remember checking and rechecking the Johns Hopkins, COVID tracker as it sort of crested 1 million cases in the US, like it was a thing.
I remember that day.
And now, I can't remember the last time I went to check.
Yeah.
I don't know that was useful. In a moment of stress, and you're trying to make decisions for the family. My wife is saying, what should we do? How should we approach X, Y, or Z?
Yeah.
And you think being informed is useful, but there is a point where I was talking to a friend recently, and it was interesting. We were talking about, politics and a bunch of stuff. I had sent him some podcasts to listen to, and he was like, no, bro, I stay abreast. I listen to NPR every day. And when I moved to the States, coming from Ireland, I was thinking I had to find new sources of information. All my sources that I knew at home were gone, or at least irrelevant. So, NPR found my stations and was like, yeah, this is good. And then, 3-4 years in, I sort of came to appreciate that it was kind of just pleasant noise. You know what I mean? It was it was entertaining news that felt good when you're left-leaning. And I sort of tuned out. It just was like, oh, this is actually not useful. This is just pleasant. This is soothing, but not useful to me. And then started a journey of finding other sources. What was my point? I had a point.
Morning routine.
The tone of it.
Yeah, I don't have a morning routine. I'm really, really bad, and it's one of the things that I'm hoping that just by being near you, John, that some of this will rub off.
It never falters. It's the most important part of the day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in regards to Michael kind of reading the comment and the question from whoever asked the question, that's how you are capable of existing and lasting in a flow state longer when you're actually being creative. I mean, setting yourself up for a smooth transition into that state where the distractions are minimized, you're allocating time in the day to hit those emails, to digest some piece of information that you want to stay up on, whether it be COVID or, whatever it is at the current moment, economy, anything that's on your mind that you feel like you should be somewhat aware of and to whatever degree, that stuff needs to be kept in in a certain allocated time, because your bandwidth can only handle so much. That's why when you're talking about the tone of the headlines, the tone of someone's voice in the podcast that you love listening to, it might not be that time of day to listen to someone specific, because it's too energized, it's too hyped to get into your creative space that you need to be in to zen out and focus on that. And I think that's what the morning routine does and works for me. It's specifically to kind of just fall into that. And I see it rubbing off on Josh. Like you even commented tonight while we were setting up and I was cooking food that Josh de Guzman, my assistant, was here working, and Rory commented, man, his starting and stopping on the, doing a note and doing is kind of soothing. Like there's nothing annoying about it. Like when Josh is in the zone, he's in the zone, and his tasks might be at that time a little bit more mundane than my like kind of free flow divergent mentality of mixing and trying to be creative and pushing things around. And he's only converging, or he's only finishing and doing exact notes that people are asking for, fading ins and outs, like these specific things, but he has a way of just diving in there and being so focused you can't even take him out of it. And that's what I love. And sometimes he'll get up and go grab a Topo Chico from the fridge, and I can see like a respite from that. But it's so deliberate. Like when he's feeling it, he does it and he gets it done. And I know it's because he had his morning, and he tells me, he's like, hey, I'm gonna be a little late today. I haven't done my whatever he's got to do. And I'm like, cool. And if I really need him to come in early, I'm like, yo man, can you come in? Like I kind of need you to do this now while I'm out. And it's really rare because I respect that. Like he asked me tomorrow, can I come in at 1 because I need to, honestly, I forget what he said he needed to do. I think he was doing archery. And I was like, yeah, no, I want you to do archery. Like, I need you to do that. Like, I need you to do that so you perform at work. Like, these are things that I've never, I've been so well mentored in my life, but I don't think that was ever brought up in the room of make sure you do your morning routine before you show up to work.
No. Yeah, well, performance is a thing that seems to be left out of the conversation. It's like a mix at the highest level is a performance. It's an intuitive thing that just sort of happens, and you get out of your own way and you just respond, and how often have you gotten a question about performance as an audio engineer? It just hardly ever happens. It's like it's all about this intellectual side of it, or the technique or the tools. It's never like the actual mixing, which is a performance, which is at it's a higher order sort of set of considerations. And that's why this holistic approach to audio engineering makes so much more sense. It's like, if you don't account for what's happening in the rest of your life, then you can't optimize for the performance part of it.
Yes.
And I mean, I think we should add the caveat, like we have in previous episodes, that different people are more and less sensitive to
you have to figure it out for yourself.
There are some people who can mix, can crush it mixing while texting continuously with one hand, and other people for whom one text is a deal breaker, especially if it comes from your wife and says the AC is broken, or the drain is blocked, or the utility bill is due, whatever. So it can be, it varies a lot for people. I was driving today, coming back from our meeting, Spider, and thinking that, so much of my life has been sort of like defined by running from rules and discipline, a kind of a willful, like, I don't like constraint. I don't want to work at the bank. I don't want to be a solicitor or a lawyer. I don't want rules and order.
Rory is such a rebel.
I want freedom in my creative space.
Yeah, man.
But ending up being trapped by it, because what discipline gives you is, we all have an incredible amount to do in the day, right? So I've got a family to keep running. My wife stays home, which is great, but I've got everyone there to consider, and doctor's visits and school stuff to figure out. And then I've got my work, our acoustics work in the studio. And there's a lot of balls in the air on any given day. And what discipline does is what the sort of free-form approach, which is I wake when I wake, I go to the studio once I've dealt with the stuff at home, sort of that slightly indulgent way of living, means that I'm always behind, and I'm always behind the list of things to do. And consequently, there's no moment except that last 30 minutes of the day when I've got a glass of wine and everyone's asleep and my phone has stopped pinging, that I sort of steal half an hour from the day of like, right?
Yeah.
And I've known it for years and I just haven't been able to act on it. But the discipline in terms of I start work at this hour, maybe early, Rob style, I hope. And I finish work at this hour, and what isn't done then. And, what we talked about today outside our meeting was these yeses that lock you in, that sort of, there are some people, they ask you a question and like, hey, can you do this? And yeah, I can. Yep. I can bring your dry cleaning to the dry cleaner for you in the morning. It's a one-time transaction. There are other yeses that are setting you up for a world of pain. Like, hey, can you help me? Can you check out the mixes on my album? Like, I kind of need some input, like an open-ended kind of thing. And I'm bad at saying yes to those things because I want to help people, and I want to. I think a problem about being someone who connects is wherever I am in the morning with my kid, or in the kitchen with my wife, or in the room with a client, I want to connect deeply. I sort of value, I thrive on that deep connection.
Yeah.
But what happens is I go there, do that at the expense of, like, you know, I'm enjoying this playtime with my kids, or my wife is down, I need to help her with this problem. So I'm going to go to the studio a little later. And then the disorder in the day stacks and multiplies, you know, and I'm coming home at 11:30 instead of 8:30 or whatever, you know. So yeah, I'm really bad at this stuff.
Yeah, well, you're clearly aware of it and working on it. I think that's more than half the battle here, right?
Yeah, and you try to, you know, Rob and I talked with Spider about this sort of incredible sensitivity to the world, a raised eyebrow across Starbucks, and you're like, I wonder if that lady is mad about whatever. You know, this incredible sensitivity is a Jedi superpower, and it's our fucking kryptonite all at once.
Nice, dude.
You know? The trick is, you know, I don't want to not be me. I want to sort of embrace the totality of who I am, but I do need to protect myself. And I've made big moves in the last couple of years to sort of, you know, limit, and I've made some good decisions recently. And I Peter Attia's blog, which I rarely read, came in a couple of weeks ago, and it was one that I actually did stop and read because it was quite short. And he was talking about making a journal of he has a problem saying no, like I do. And he was making a journal of saying no. So record when you say no to things you previously would have said yes to. And there was an example that Spider and I, with a client that needed help for something that really fell out of, a mutual client that fell out of our domain. It was like they were struggling with something, someone who should have been showing up quite wasn't. And it was kind of, you know, hey Spider, hey Rory, can you do this? And it's like, no, we can't. Yeah. And 2 years ago, a year ago, I would have said yes.
Yeah, right.
And I would have been across town dealing with that problem instead of kicking ball with my kids.
Yeah.
So baby steps is all I'm saying.
I see those as baby steps. Those are huge steps.
Yeah, but move the trend in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's key.
That's it. And a big part of our collaboration through, you know, this sort of management stuff that Michael is so strong on, and your discipline, John, there are two things I'm enjoying being close to, and
me too,
watching, and
to influence,
learning from. Because I think we tend towards
divergence.
Towards fucking chaos. However you want to look at it.
There's a few things I wanted to say about that.
Do it.
Because this is an interesting subject to me, and it has been for my whole life. I mean, especially once I realized I like to converge, I think it became even more interesting to me. I remember I was out for lunch at one of these jobs I was working at with a really great designer. Shout out to Greg. Excellent designer, super divergent. And we're out to lunch, and I was talking about like the next few weeks and what I was doing and all these things. And he's like, oh yeah, like I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow. I don't even know what I'm doing like later today. And he was like proud of it, but like in a rebellious way, like it doesn't even fucking matter. I could do anything I want. And, you know, and I was like, that's cool. Like that's sounds
kind of,
it's exciting. Like in New York City, when you're in your 20s, like that could be exciting. But I was like, yeah, but I'm doing this and I'm seeing these people and we're going to do these things and I'm going to like chill this day. And I'm like picking up my iPad mini at the time or whatever. Like, and I had all this stuff mapped out, and he's like, how do you remember all this? And I was like, oh, I just put it in my calendar. Like I'm super diligent with the calendar. He's like, I will never keep a calendar. And I was like, all right, man. And I kept going back and forth why it's so great and whatever. Then like, I think it was like 2 years later, I saw him somewhere and he's like, dude, after we talked, like a year later, I started keeping a calendar and it like changed my entire life.
Yep.
Like my entire life, like life. And I was like super happy about it. And I saw this transformation with him. He was like happier. his mood was definitely way up than it was. He felt like just there was some momentum. I just felt this momentum, this energy. And I can't speak too much for his situation, but I can speak for mine, and why I found the calendaring, the diligence with scheduling to be important is like what we're doing, and getting back to kind of the energy that we're spending is we're spending energy to be creative with our minds, not our bodies. We're not doing physical labor. We're doing it with our minds, and our minds are still burning calories all the time.
Yeah, more.
And
one third of our energy is used in our brain.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
Glucose.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I wonder how that changes depending on the kind of work you do. You know, if you're like on a factory line, just kind of throwing things around, is it more physical?
Mastering is the hardest. I know it.
Yeah, I mean, like depending on what it is, you
President
know,
of the United States, mastering engineer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so it's definitely going to change, right, across the board.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we often talk about routines and the mind and all of that, because it's something we need to preserve, and we need to be super aware of how it's shifting and changing, because as it shifts, what we can do for our work shifts. And so by applying discipline, which really is process, which is like the dirtiest word. Sorry, go ahead.
As it shifts, what we can do for our work shifts. What do you mean?
As our mind's mood shifts and our the pressures in, like internal pressures, like any pressure kind of on the mind, as that's changing, and the less control or the more control we have of it, all of those elements, as those things shift, it's going to affect our work naturally.
Yeah.
Right? And so, you know, for me, problem solver brain, I'm like, well, how do I like prevent it from shifting as much as I can? And this is pre-meditation days, and the first thing I found was calendaring.
That was amazing when they invented meditation in 2003.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
No, I thought that was only last week.
That was a big moment. Yeah.
I thought Headspace invented
Yeah.
it.
I want to jump in here because kind of bridge a gap, because I had the same moment. I don't have the exact time. Like, I don't know the moment that the moment occurred, but I also picked up the calendar thing, and it changed my life. I mean, I was an anti-calendar person probably till I moved to this space like 5 years ago, and I've been doing this career for maybe 18 years. So I just let things flow, and the same thing. And I'd wind up at a different place this night, or different place in the morning for just like whatever I wanted to do, I did. And now there's a hybrid of, I'm in love with the calendar. The calendar is pretty blocked out the week in advance, but not for work. I never block out what song I'm going to work on what day. I only do that if there's a hardcore deadline, which is rare. And then someone says, I need this to be done by Friday. I might schedule it for Thursday, but I'll probably get it done that Monday, right? I'll probably just jump into it because on my mind, that's the priority. Someone told me that's the priority. I'm just going to do it organically. But I've never put into my calendar what I'm working on still to this day. Now that's different when you're a songwriter and you have, or a producer and you have a session booked. But specifically as a mix engineer, the only time I can think of putting something in the calendar is when I'm streaming with someone to do a live note tweak session. But that usually happens spontaneously too, where we just text and someone says, hey, you around? Oh, I'm actually good in 20 minutes. Like, let me just wrap up this mix. Love to take a break and jump onto that and finish your song, you know? So the calendar works more for the social aspect of things and how to plan the time. So then the work happens every other time in between that. So I'm scheduling out the morning coffees and I have to do my taxes or whatever else life, you know, is calling me to do, but the work stuff has never been on the calendar, which I find interesting hearing you talk about that. I think I use it backwards.
Yeah. So, I mean, but for me, it started, sorry, go ahead.
But it sorts out the time that I get to spend on work, free flowing and in that flow state.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the stuff is booked out and blocked out on a calendar. So I'm not thinking about when I'm doing that.
I like that a lot because in a way that's prioritizing. I mean, they always talk about work-life balance. This is like, it's prioritizing life, and work fits in seamlessly to any gap that would exist in the calendar.
Yes.
Which feels great.
Yeah, specifically someone that works from home. I mean, the only things I would have to put on a calendar then would be meetings that are taking place outside of the home.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just how it works.
I think sometimes that, you know, I was talking to someone recently about this and something came up and I was like thinking, is that 15-year-old me that's responding to you or like 44-year-old me? And some of the decisions I made, like, I don't want to be structure guy. I don't want to be rules guy. like they're like made by a petulant teenager who didn't want to, who was arguing with the school principal about, who later became a friend. I would have this long running argument with the principal of our school about wearing a uniform. I did not want to wear the uniform. And he would stop me on the way into school and say, you need to wear a uniform. And I'd be like, I don't want to wear a uniform. And later in life, like we got to hang out and like kind of laugh about it. But at the time it was just like, you're trying to find your voice. But a lot of these ideas of like, I want a career where I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. And it's like, that doesn't really work.
It's not how you build things.
It's not how you build things. And it isn't actually how you attain freedom. No. The freedom comes from discipline. And that's sort of the wording of that sort of came to me at a stoplight today, but or a stop sign. But
I think that's Jocko. Freedom equals discipline.
Yeah, that's
or discipline equals freedom. Yeah.
But more as it pertains to my life, it's like by not having discipline, I never get to be free because I don't get through. I don't plan the work into slots, and then I don't get through the assigned work. So consequently, everything is just always on my mind. It's like the blocked drain, the master that needs to happen tomorrow, the broken piece of gear. They're all like
swimming around.
Swimming around
up
instead of today I will go in and do the 8 things I agreed to do, and no more.
Right.
And then I will leave. And then when I leave, I'm done. I don't think about mastering at night, and I don't need to answer emails after, whatever. And I've never been good at that.
The calendar is a tool that facilitates this discipline, right?
Yeah.
And with the sort of alerts we can get now, and I've had a sort of revolutionary calendar experience.
Seeing you fall
recently.
in love with it has been super inspiring to me.
I really enjoyed the time in my life when I didn't keep a calendar. I had managers and business managers and all this sort of thing, and they all just pointed me in the right direction. All I had to do was make my appointments and be there on time and this sort of thing. And I've had a sort of on-again, off-again relationship with calendars. I think the PMC gig brought me back to the calendar, but scheduling was always the hump. It was a thing I was always like avoidant of. It was just, I got to find a time when you and me and the other person, and wait, am I coordinating this? And for whatever reason, I identified this as a problem for me. Is like, it just doesn't get done a lot of the time. And this new Squarespace scheduler just automates all of that. And it just facilitated a much higher degree of productivity for me and sort of clarity in my day. So there's this sort of technology solution to this fault of mine that I remember I was on Squarespace working on the Studio Life Store website. And all of a sudden, in the left pane, there was a scheduling section. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And it said "new" next to it, and it was like a dream come true. Yeah. It's been once you set it up, you take the time to set it up. And with Unfucked Projects, our acoustics sort of work it's a little complicated. It's not like I'm a therapist who's just booking sessions. It's like we have different teams. There's just me when I'm doing speaker consultations. It's Rory and me when we're doing these sort of more panel-related consultations. And as soon as there's a 2x4 involved or some kind of build-out, and then Kyle Mann is involved. So we have like 3 different calendars in there. And there's all different appointment types and whatever. But once you set it up, it is a really, really powerful tool. And it's really been good for me.
And it took a bunch of time. You spent a good month or 6 weeks kind of going hard on it. But now these complete sort of dates drop in our inbox, and it's like, you're meeting this guy on this place to talk about this. They've already paid their deposit. They give all their room information, everything. It's all there.
Floor plans, photos.
It's incredibly
descriptions of gear.
Useful and complete, and it just bypasses endless.
And we bring much more value to the meeting because it's all
way more.
You know what I mean? Like within 5 minutes of just looking through the stuff they've submitted, like in the first 5 minutes of the call, it's like we get so much done.
Tying that to something you said about scheduling and building, it's about building. I mean, calendaring, like you need to schedule things on the calendar to get them done. And sometimes those are like relationship-based things that might turn into you building something, or it's actually a project that you need to build. And it happens so often where it's like, maybe you meet someone, you want to work on a project, it could be really cool. And you're like, yeah, I would love to do it. We should chat. And then it just totally falls through.
This is an LA trope, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, it happens in every big
of course
city.
it does.
It's a metropolitan trope.
Definitely. And no, but it definitely happens out here for sure. And I remember I was in Nashville, and Nathan Dantzler, I was there, and we were talking about doing marketing work together. He was like, oh, I'd love to do that. And I was like, cool, like, when are you free next? And he always brings this up. He's like, that was when I knew I wanted to work with you, because you weren't just like, yeah, man, like, I'd love to do that. We should like definitely talk about that sometime. Instead, I was like, so when's the next day you're free?
Yeah, you
like,
took action.
Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't see that a lot. And so when you get to be around people that are like, when are we doing it? Or this is happening tomorrow at 6, you're like, I love it.
Well,
I think it's great.
everything I'm hearing for the last like 15, 20 minutes, to me, resonates as responsible, professional, and accountable humans, right?
Yeah.
Reliable humans.
Yeah.
And if you want to get hired in the long run and stay relevant, stay respected, all these traits have to exist. I mean, maybe at some point you become the 55-year-old producer that has 10 number ones, and you get to be a little more aloof and off the map, and people will wait for your notes for like
But
6
you've got
months.
managers handling shit.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
It gets done one
It
way
gets
or
done.
another. Yeah.
But all these characteristics, the 15-year-old version or the 44-year-old version, the 15-year-old version of you was not getting hired, right?
No.
So like the contrarian attitude is just so obnoxious to me, of like, fuck that. Like, I'm not going to do this because I was told to do this. I'm not going to show up here because of this. I'm like, what are you doing? You're never going to get
Teenage experiments.
Exactly.
You try
But
shit
that's
on.
why 15. You try it on, and it works, and you're going to get response from it. You're going to get a different type of group of friends that also relate to that. And you're going to rebel and do. I mean, that's all we've all done it. Just, man, converging sounds and feels sexy these days. Like finishing things. And being reliable and someone that you can count on. Man, I don't know. Maybe other people don't relate to that, but that's kind of transformed my perspective on what a good life is to live.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I relate to it. I'm just not good at it.
Yeah.
I'm good at other stuff.
It's a practice. It really is.
And the flip side of being really in the moment is when I'm really in the moment with Spider, I go deep on that conversation, and I'm late for the next thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not good at, okay, this is awesome, I'm going to cut it off and be on time for the next thing. You know what I mean? That's discipline.
Because you want to talk to me more than you want to do that thing.
Well, I want to be connected to whoever I'm connected to, my daughter or my client or you or John or whatever we're doing. I'm deep in it. I want to be present for that.
Well, hopefully they will still be around.
Yeah.
Well,
to do it the next time and
the
continue the conversation as.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is
I
like,
wanted to
you've
say-
got to be patient, because this sounds,
Yes.
this is, me poking around inside in that links and knowing what everything does is super. I'm super comfortable in that space, but it maybe not for everyone at the table. You're really good in this space, and I'm certainly not.
Oh,
So,
I'm Michael's saying, it's a practice. I mean, I'm outwardly practicing. I was not always like this, and that's why I can say it now, and it's really fun.
Yeah.
You
One
should have
thing,
seen my bedroom when I was 17.
Yeah.
not like
Yikes.
black and white, everything clean.
Well, it was black and white, but
That's about it.
all the clothes were just on the floor.
Sick. I wanted to say something. A lot of times you'll hear someone say, like, you might not hear them say it, or you've heard the phrase about people being respectful of your time. But I also think it's important that you're respectful of your time.
Yes.
I think that's when calendaring starts to make more sense.
Yes.
It's actually you being respectful of your own time.
Yes.
It's like, I want to spend this time today to record the podcast. So how can I be respectful of my time, my energy here, and my energy throughout the day? So it's like, maybe that, like, I had 4 calls scheduled today and I canceled them all, right? Because I was being respectful of ultimately everyone's time that I want to spend with, but it's my time as well. And so, like, the same way that if someone was like, hey man, I just booked up your whole week, you'd be like, what the fuck? Like, that's not respectful of my time. Same thing, but you're doing it for yourself. And
That's
that's sort
an
of the
abstraction
flip.
that's difficult to if you don't feel that and what that means, I think you can still accomplish. So the rub I was having was I have a lot of things I want to do, right? During this last, year, and especially this year, there are a lot of things that I want to do. And for me to be able to do them and keep my commitments that I make to other people, I had to get serious with this calendar. And so that is respect for other people's time. The rub was, I don't want to be that guy that's like not showing up, right?
Right.
And I know that when I'm overwhelmed, it's a possibility. It's likely, right? When I get overwhelmed. So even though I may not be able to feel, I can conceive of it intellectually, respect for my own time. It's hard to experience that respect in the moment. And I think you can make improvements, even if that doesn't resonate, you can make improvements by externalizing it, by having this sort of mutual respect thing, and respect for other people. And I think this is one of the benefits of relationships in general, is it's never just about you and it's never just about the other person. It's always about both at the same time. It's just a different way of coming at the same thing.
Yeah.
Because respect for somebody else's time is easier to translate to yourself. For some people than going is self first and then outward. This idea of like fix yourself first before you're with other people. It's like, no, that doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, yeah.
There's no island you can go to be your best self alone. Right? That's not even a thing. It's like in our relationships and the action of them. And it's actually, I know there's some statistics around addiction and stuff, and people who are in like romantic relationships tend to do better. Because they're practicing the stuff that they're learning in therapy or whatever with somebody else. You need the sparring partner.
As long as it coexists with the therapist in action too.
You need like that, context for yourself.
No, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I like how you kind of flipped what I said, because it's true. I think there's partially having, you carve out time for yourself, and you're carving out time for others when you're looking at the calendar visually. Like literally, you can say, I'm going to spend this whole day with myself, but ultimately you're right. It is for other people, because the person you are at, let's say you only had one event today, like today, I had this event. The person I am here is different than it would have been had I booked 15 different meetings. Like that was my Tuesday. And I remember I went to therapy, and he was like, how's it going? I'm like, I'm literally on fire. Like my brain is on fire. It's hard to even take it down because I've been doing so much. So it's like I wasn't the person for him, or everyone got a different version, you know?
Yeah. And, I think about doing this. I think about my Live with Matt Rads every Tuesday morning. I could totally mix a song before Live with Matt Rad, but I want to be the best version of myself for that podcast every Tuesday. So I'm not going to mix a song before that. Maybe there will be a note, but I don't even want that kind of work in my brain before I'm trying to deliver some sort of value, that the potential value of just me being me in that moment. And yes, you can argue that maybe coming off a song and then talking about it could be beneficial to a lot of people, but that's not the way I'm going to be turned on the best, to be focused on what he has to ask me and how to bring him in. And that's what Michael's saying about today. Like today's kind of a restful day up until the podcast recording, if possible. It's not, it wasn't for you today.
Well, it wasn't for, this is my first in the 6 we've done, 7 we've done, 6. This is my first day having a full work day. I started at 6:30 and it just went right through. It feels fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
it feels fine, but I like sort of taking Wednesdays as, like I said last week when we hung out, sort of this podcast recording has kind of become the sort of intellectual focus point of my week.
Right.
Like it's where the sort of disparate ideas in my mind on the drive down, it's like they're kind of coming into focus. I'm making notes. And really, I just sort of feel like it's a moment where I want to be sharp, So, today isn't ideal, but I'm having fun. So
no, but also, I mean, just collaboration in general. You're going into the room to write a song. You're a beat maker, and you're going to the room with an artist for the first time. I mean, I just think it seems like a good practice to be mindful of what's to come at what point of the day and prepare for it somewhat. Like when we talk about recording the podcast, we don't prepare the topic. We talk about a couple of topics that we could touch on, and the minute someone says that's a good topic, we start talking about it.
Right.
And, there's a minimal plan to the day. So the quick calendar and the quick this is happening, so do this up until that, and it's very minor. It shouldn't be like, because then you can go into over planning, and then you're okay. Well, I need this amount of time before this. Like that's not the point. It should be a little bit more specific, a little more general and less specific on what you need to do to lead up to it.
I think it sort of intersects with two other topics, and we don't have to go there tonight. But perfectionism is one.
Yeah.
So I sort of want perfect conversations, and I want perfect engagement, and I want perfect masters, and I want perfect fixes of broken gear, and I sort of dive into seeking perfection at the expense of the next thing or the order of my day. And that's
Let's go there.
Yeah, let's
go.
Maybe. And the other thing is gone. So I had
what a shame. Perfectionism isn't enough.
Yeah, no, there was another
Perfectionism and the void.
Yeah.
I was just imagining a
but sorry, charging enough for your work. So if you necessarily don't bill enough for what you do, that you have to book too much every day, you end up in a cycle of booking too much, doing poor work, not charging enough. We can tease that out at maybe another time, but there is sometimes the rate has to come first to allow the space to sort of organize a schedule. Because if you've got LA rent and a car payment and healthcare, et cetera, and you're billing $200 a mix, which people are, or $300 a mix, you're going to end up with too much on your plate every day. There is no order in that. You can't fit 80 songs into the week or what, you know what I mean, to make enough. So you've sort of, it's these knock-on decisions you make. And the last time I bumped my rate, I sort of did it out of spite because someone who had been doing it for a very short amount of time, I found out their rate. I asked them and it was like, oh yeah, I charge whatever. And it was like, wait, what? And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to charge that much because I'm, it's kind of a dumb reason, but it worked.
Right. Well, it's not a dumb reason at all.
But it did.
It's just a number.
Yeah.
It's just a number.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I ever, sort of just willfully raised my rate to be able to keep a more manageable schedule. And the goal is to keep going north with that,
Well, aiming high and knowing you're low is a good way to come at it, right? You should aim for what potentially what other people that you look up to, maybe a little further on in their career, are charging. That's what you'd like to get. Ask for it and be comfortable with a lower number, because there's always going to be negotiations. There's always going to be a free day that you're not booked. Like Spider said one time in a conversation, fill your schedule. Like if you got time and something comes across the desk and it's of a quality that you love, an artist that you love, and they don't have what you want, but there's value comes from different places, and I think fill the schedule and I mean aim high when you decide your rate.
Yeah, I guess what's interesting to me is just that decisions you make about something like rate can have a profound effect on your daily
discipline,
the daily workload you have to carry.
Yeah.
So instead of mastering, 4 songs or 6 songs, you've got to master 12 to pay your rent and studio rent and car, etc. So I guess discipline has to extend out into other areas of your life.
Yeah,
it's got other.
This conversation's really, really tough, because also the minute you start saying no to the lower rate things, a lot of those people come back and wind up hiring you anyway for the full rate that you quoted them anyway, because then they found the person to do it for the sub rate, and then they didn't like what they got, so they wound up spending double the price to get something that they liked, and they initially wanted to come work with you anyway. This happens all the time. So coming back to earlier when we were talking about saying no, I was trying to think of a way to make this relevant, because I'm just starting in my career to say no more regularly, and my income isn't suffering because of it. In fact, I think I'm making more money because of it. And it goes two ways. One, I don't get the project because I said no. And then another project that is respecting my rate and has it and wants to pay it comes in, or they said no, got it mixed by someone else, we're unhappy, and it comes back. It's two, right? And it allocates more bandwidth of time to spend with your family. That's going to fuel being able to do better work the next time at the full rate thing, which then you'll get known for that. And then that person will tell someone that also will share the rate that they paid you. And there's this train that kind of ever flows at some point. I mean, the momentum needs to be built up by saying yes and getting it done, but there's got to be a fine line. And I'm still working out in my head because I don't really understand when that switch flipped necessarily. I think one of the comments today on Instagram that was asking was that like a career arc and trajectory. And Michael and I have been talking about it for quite a bit. We're trying to work on what that looks like on a mind map, because I've never seen it or heard it. And I think rate is part of it. Like what tier, when do you raise your rate? And rates should be flexible. I never want to price myself out of new, young, great talent that doesn't have the rate that I'm asking for. One of the worst things happened the other day. A producer DM'd me online, was like, man, I really wanted to get you on this so-and-so mix, but the A&R was pumped and then said, we couldn't afford them. I was like, I didn't get reached out to. Like the A&R didn't hit me up and say, hey man, like, how are you feeling about this artist? Like, can you take a listen to this single we want you to mix? Like, why didn't you ask me? Like, just ask. I mean, we all, the greatest, everybody, masters are coming down in rate if they're want to get involved with the new artist. So there's got to be a flexibility in rate always, but to have to do 12 songs in a day to make your nut sounds a little bit...
You can't do that very long.
You can't do that very long, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
But there are a lot of people in some version of that. I mean, that's I'm just throwing out a random number, but there are people who
but that's reasonable. It just makes me think that you need to downsize, right? Versus having to have that much output. You either raise the rate or you downsize your...
Well, there's only so much downsizing in LA, for example.
Sure.
So ultimately you need to be good enough to command a better rate. You know what I mean? That's
and this is a dense city with dense amount of talent, and it takes a lot.
Yeah, it's hard to compete here.
Yeah. Which is what makes it great.
That's what's so exciting about it. It's the Olympics every day.
Yeah.
When you're going, when someone's hiring you, they're not hiring everyone else who's great.
Can we make the audio Olympics? I like this idea. Like, how fast can you tell what snare frequency is? Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Come on. One nerd joke. Come on. We never do that.
In terms of like a metric to kind of be aware of as you're maturing, I feel like when we were talking about the calendar earlier, I was thinking about when the first experience I had, or one of the earlier experiences I had around time and work. And one of my mom's friends sent me this time tracker app when I was like first freelancing at like 15. I think I might have been 17 at the time. And I was like, I installed it. It was free. And I started tracking every job that I was doing. I would just like hit this timer and it would track, and then I would stop it. And so I was kind of making this connection between how long the work I was doing was taking, and how long did a website actually take me, or how long did a logo actually take me, how long were these meetings? And so I kind of got a little more comfortable understanding like how much time am I actually spending and how much was I charging. And I think like oftentimes people are just charging a thing and then are like, I'll spend infinite time or whatever. And there's obviously room to spend more time than you budgeted for, but ultimately you kind of want to be trending, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you want to be trending to, you're spending less time. If you were to break it down how many dollars per hour you needed, you want to be spending less hours than you're actually charging.
It's hard
for.
to quantify that a lot of the time.
Yeah.
In a creative world, right?
It's definitely hard. Yeah, and that's why
you have to look at it in terms of months and years.
Yeah, exactly.
The average mix time over a year.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But like, if you're not really, I think it helps to be conscious of it. Like,
totally.
Getting a sense of how long are these things actually taking me, and what really goes into the thing I'm doing. It's not just sitting down at the computer. It's everything leading up to it.
Well, yeah. And also thinking about what Rory was talking about, not always now, because now there's a good flow, but when there wasn't a good flow, I thought of how many songs do I need to mix to break even, and that's the goal. Is
Yeah.
that I can live off of a canned salmon and olive oil and salts. Like if I really had to. I mean, we find our ways to survive when we want it the most. Yeah, thinking about it hourly is tough. I guess that as a mixer, maybe you could do that. It just seems more beneficial to think about it monthly. Like, what does it take to get? Does it take 3 songs to get your rent done? Does it take 4? Does it take 12? If it takes 12, maybe your rent, maybe your ratio is off. And maybe your rate needs to come up because it can come up $100 and it's not going to scare people away. It could be a really easy raise that you're just not aware of because you haven't even run the math yet, right? We have to. There's very few things in the world.
times 12, it's $1,200 a month.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's very few things in the world right now that are certain, just in general, and math is still one of them, thankfully.
For now.
No, it will hold.
I have faith in math.
Yeah.
It's been going strong for a pretty long time.
I had an interesting thing happen to me last week that I kind of wanted to. I feel like correlates a little bit to this saying no thing. I had a moment that was pretty profound for me, and it didn't feel profound in the moment. But then I think I was talking to my girlfriend about it, and then I realized how because I forgot the question she asked back, but it felt pretty important afterwards, which was I mixed an entire album minus one song for an artist that I go way back with, like eight years. And one of the songs is just, it wasn't, we weren't nailing it. And the producer is also a really good friend of mine, called me and it's like, man, I'm gonna rip the Band-Aid off, but I have a whole speech worked out about why I'm about to say this. And he's like, we're going to have Spike Stent mix this song. And I was like, cool, Spike's going to kill that song. Sorry I didn't nail it for you guys. I know the deadline's Monday. But he's like, oh, what? Oh, wait, you don't want to hear the... I was like, no, it's cool. Spike's going to kill it. Like, wasn't my type of record. And if I know what you want out of it, and that's cool. It's great. I got the whole rest of the record, and it's going to be great to share a credit with Spike Stent. I love Spike.
Yeah.
So just having that was my reaction to it. And I didn't really think of it. And then I brought it up. And she was like, wait, but that's kind of a big deal. I know from history you'd be a little bit bummed that you didn't get the song or the entire thing. I was like, oh, right, yeah, I would. And it's not the same thing as saying no, but being okay with things that you're not the right fit on seems to me was profound, because I'm the kind of person that wants to do every genre and be great at everything. And I bought a new knife this morning and I want to be great at cutting sashimi. And like I did all the research and called the Japanese knife importer guy and like, do I want this? He's like, no, you want double bevel. Like if you don't know me, then you won't understand that. But I definitely want to. And he said that. He's like, are you the kind of person that wants to master everything that you do? And I was like, whoa, this guy gets me.
Meets a lot of these people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What are you willing to do to take care of this knife? Like this steel versus this kind of steel and all the things. I'm like, oh no, you tell me what I need to get that's going to be the best, and I'm going to figure it out. So that's the kind of personality we're dealing with internally. And so the fact that it didn't work out, and it hasn't affected me since. I'm talking about it now, and I only think of it in a great light. And that's something that I feel like a lot of my peers, they feel let down when something doesn't work out. And when an artist goes a different direction with a different mixer, which has happened to me a few times with pretty massive artists that, I helped kind of build their career in the beginning and help sculpt the sound. And then the minute that they're on the radio and have the success, they go to someone like Spike or someone like Serban and these kind of master mixers, and rightfully so. They should try out that and just being okay with things not working out. Now that's different than the rate conversation, because if you've done the work in that circumstance, like I'm still going to get paid for that work, that it's going to Spike. But at least we can mutually agree that I can't and one can't be the perfect fit for everything, and that's something that I really had to learn, and I don't think I learned it till last week.
You picked your lane and you sort of worked on your sound. And so this isn't like a quality judgment. This is a casting call.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like, I think this would be actually whatever Spike is bringing that's different to what you're bringing would be good for this thing. And who can't acknowledge that?
But the reason I'm bringing it up is I couldn't a week ago, I don't think. Or I definitely couldn't a year ago when this happened to me with Spike another time, where I was like, why did he get that? Like, I've been working with this person for so long. And then realizing, wait, but listen to that record. Like,
there's probably a difference between a song you think you'd be good for going to somebody else than a song that you think is sort of, oh yeah, I could see that. I could see their take on this. That would work.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's puzzles that you believe you could have unlocked, and there's puzzles that you know you never get. You know what I mean? Some mixes are like, I could have done that if I'd come at it a different way.
Yeah. I mean, I thought about that. I think the reaction was, now let him do it, but I could have said, no, I'll just start over. Let me try it again. And that was a mixture, and kind of why I'm bringing it up in all this context is I just wanted to hang out with my girlfriend that night. I didn't want to spend the weekend trying again. Like I already did 5 versions on it and we didn't hit it. Now that being said, I never started over. We just kept going from that version and doing notes.
You were hearing it differently than they were.
Yes.
Yeah. We had this conversation this morning. Spider and I were working, doing planning for a room treatment with a drummer whose last name I have to read from the screen, Sam Kaufman-Schloff.
Sick.
And great dude,
Schloff.
awesome spot in Hollywood. And we had this conversation where we sort of were talking about his position on this continuum from one being complete service provider, drums for anyone, any genre, any style, any sound. You want big and roomy. You want small and tight 70s, I can do it. To 10 being Artisan, this is my style, take it or leave it, And it was our first time working with him. We were trying to find out where he lay on that continuum, and we put a number on it, and everyone kind of agreed on it, and the goal is to move him further along. And I remember versions of those conversations with you a couple of years ago where it was like the goal is to move you further along towards 10, to be more you, have more of a voice, like we talked about a couple of episodes ago, and consequently you're going to fit some things more perfectly than ever and not fit other things more than you've ever not fit them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then it's the most fun when the majority of the artists are coming to you for what they know you do, because then you get to do it and then everyone's happy with way less friction.
Including you.
Everyone. Including,
and then that sort of leads to that, Rich Costi style evolution that we talked about, 2 or 3 episodes ago, where you've got to force evolution and change in your own. You've got to drive it, because otherwise people will lead by, hey John, give us that thing you do, that thing you do, until they don't call and say, hey, give us that thing you do.
I was so pumped yesterday. I got to I told you guys over dinner, but I got to mix a song with Earth, Wind and Fire as the band behind the artist, which will remain nameless now because I don't know when this will air versus when it comes out, but it's one of the most exciting things for me ever, really. But I've never heard Earth, Wind and Fire with bottom end. So the first thing I do is take the VT5, the DW Fern, and I just turn like the 20 hertz boost up 6 dB. I'm just like, what's that bringing to the band? And it just starts thumping. And I would play you the instrumental at some point, guys. It's worth hearing. And I never heard them like that. And I just was like, oh, well, I'm mixing this album, so I'm not going to make it sound like the rough that's all thin and like the 70s. Like, that's just not what I want it to sound like. So I'm going to just give it a go. And I think we wound up meeting somewhere in the middle. I think they were like, whoa, that's a lot of bottom. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of tight.
Earth, Wind and Fire,
But that shit went. And I was like, I've never heard a record like that feel like this. And, you can argue that maybe it shouldn't because of historic symbolism, like you guys always talk. But I just think that's what takes it into 2020.
We've talked about that. Every genre has. Jazz records have more 30 hertz than they've ever had. They're louder. All the genres are responding to hip hop and R&B right now.
I referred to this. I was talking to Fabian Mixer from Atlanta on. Actually, I think he's in LA now. Lil Wayne's guy, kind of Cash Money dude. On Instagram yesterday, and I don't know why this came out of me, but I was like, man, you killing it. He was really, really huge in early 2000s, like 2020 is the new 2000. And I was thinking, wait, that makes a lot of sense. I kind of just said it, but I actually stand by this because the records in the early 2000s, hip hop had so much low end. I mean, Usher's Confessions and R&B had so much low end. Like Ludacris records, when they bumped, like that shit was going. And for some reason now, I think based on small devices, and people are kind of afraid to boost low end, they're cutting it and they're doing like low shelves and high filters on the you know. I'm like, wait, what's happening to low end? Where is it actually going? And I think there's a way now, we have tools and tricks to have real extended low end and bottom, also have that upper harmonic,
small device,
presence.
Yeah.
And I really think we're going back to that 2000 time in mixing, specifically in sonics, of going full range. I mean, that's also going back to the 60s, and like there were breaks and pauses in there, probably depending on like the drugs that were being taken at the time. I think there's like some sort of historical reference there, and like the decadal, I think Questlove did that or something at one point. But I think we're headed back to that, and that's how I wanted to hear Earth, Wind, and Fire. What would it sound like in 2000, and what would it sound like in 2020? And it, you know,
and it's back to our conversation 2 weeks ago about taking the chance when you've got your hands on something to take it all the way, to realize your vision, and it's easy to roll back from there.
Yeah.
That sort of ballsiness to say, hey guys, I think it could be this way.
Yeah.
I think it could be this loud or this bassy or this quiet or this, you know, whatever it is, whatever the thing you feel could be brought out. You know.
I also got it. I woke up in the morning to an email before I started, the morning before, like when I got the files, and the morning before the mix. Hey, I didn't want to wake you. It was from the artist. So I sent this email, so you'll get it tomorrow morning. The producer loves this mix as it is. So I would say, like, make the kick hit like you do, and like bring some clarity to the vocals, but otherwise leave it the same. I was like, definitely not doing that. You know, I'm going to mix the fuck out of this record because I want to know what that, because it sounds like it was tracked the same way that they tracked their shit back in the, you know, it doesn't sound, you could put it out like that and it could have existed then, which is kind of crazy. And I was just thinking like, no, I'm allowed to touch this, so let me see. And again, you can always go back. Spider and I've been talking for a decade now about the first pass is yours.
Yeah.
Just go for it.
As a young
Super
engineer,
important.
it's like, that's a transition, right? Because you go from service provider to, you're providing a service to producers and artists, and you're trying to gain their trust and gain their future business and build your thing and all. And then like, like you said, it's like, at a certain point, it's like, I gotta say the first take is the first pass on the mix is mine, and then eventually it's like the first pass is the mix.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
but I think it's like that transition from service to artisan. Or
I have a question.
Yes,
Rory, you said that on your drive down here to record podcasts, you think about things and you write notes down.
I don't write while I'm driving. I sort of think of my notes.
Thanks for clarifying that. I knew that. I'm also on this tip that I keep saying to people, where when someone says it goes without saying, I say nothing goes without saying. So that I think I need to take my own advice, because What did you think about on the way down here?
What did I think
Today?
about on the way down here today?
Yeah.
I had a pretty intense day, and I was thinking about Sam Harris and meditating and driving, and I was following. I was thinking about the 110 and how much I love it. And I don't map my way down here anymore looking for the shortest route. I just always take the 110. And there was a silver car in front of me. Everything was moving a little slower today. And I just sort of locked on to the rear of the silver car, like sort of let my peripheral vision open up and just sort of snake down the 110 at a nice speed. And really didn't think very much. I didn't listen to music. I didn't put on the radio. And tried to just kind of clear my mind because it was a busy day.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Usually I'm more sort of, I have more time in the day, and then the drive down is kind of like pumping up for game time, you know?
Yeah.
But so today was a little quieter. I can't really think of any specific thoughts.
We talked a bit ago about how you thought that was really hard to do, meditating while driving. Are you changing your position on that
This
now?
was my first experiment. I thought about you and what you had said, and Sam, which I'd never heard him say. I'd never caught whatever that was. So I was just kind of like, you know, thinking, can I do this and be safe? Am I going to like zone in on pay attention to the silver bumper in front of me, and then like, get sideswiped by the semi that, you know, was on fire next to me.
He always talks about whenever we do the eye open meditations in the daily meditations of the course, he always talks about how it's not supposed to be a blurry dream state. It's supposed to be a wide-eyed, full peripheral state of mind, relaxed focus. But you're not supposed to blur anything. Like everything should be as vivid as possible.
Yes.
And that's the training for the ability to translate the meditation practice to everyday life. So you should be able to practice meditation in every moment. Like I always come back to, if I'm like explaining it to someone, I'm at a restaurant, it's like, well, I can pick up the glass of water and I can look at it, and that's meditative enough for me to focus on the moment because I'm staring at this Topo Chico bottle.
Yes.
And then I put it down, and why not be behind the silver Honda Accord and use that as a point of focus of meditation, just enough where you're still well aware of your surroundings and your safety and the safety of others.
Of course.
But that's what you're focused on, so your mind can remain zen, calm, and I feel like that's what we should be doing when we're driving, in a sense. It's the safest way to drive.
Yeah. I have a thing in the car I do with my body where the seat in my car doesn't fit my body very well. It's made for someone smaller than me. And so the curvature in the back is like all wrong. It makes me all hunched and stuff. So I sort of have this instead of bringing my attention back to my breath or my attention back to the flame or whatever it is, I sort of bring my attention back to, it is my breathing in a way, but it's my posture.
Yeah.
And so I have a certain way of sitting when I drive where all these muscles around my neck and my shoulders and can relax, and I start breathing more freely with less resistance, and that sort of opens up my perception.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's really like a deliberate relaxing of muscles. And then I find myself like back tense in the traffic, and I just bring it back, and I just go back to that. And that's what I was doing all the way from Santa Monica this afternoon.
I try to bring that into the mix world. I mean, I sit in my chair and I focus on the posture, and that's like between the speakers, and you're there and you're focused, and that's like everything else is now out of the way.
Yeah. There's a thing about the neck, if you can get this all to relax, the breathing, like you sort of open up your airways.
Right.
And when you have your back arched, and so your pelvis is sort of tilted forward, it opens up the abdomen so that your lungs can press down, right? So there's been a lot of attention brought to breathing lately.
Yeah, I heard another one that was really interesting that I've been practicing, which is the double breath, where you do a double inhale and it brings oxygen like to the ends and tips of the capillaries. Someone on Rogan was talking about it. I forgot his name. So you're like, and you like go twice and then one exhale. And I was like, it's supposed to flood, flood your body filled with oxygen. And it's like a whole new level of attention too. I'm like, that's another one. These breathing techniques.
It's like a quick Wim Hof.
Yeah. Quick Wim. Exactly.
Yeah. That episode was actually really interesting. Yeah.
David Scheller asked, he wanted to hear about the importance of hosting and connecting with people. You guys seem pretty great at it.
Well, let me talk about how the event started, because I'm not sure how much we've covered on earlier podcasts about this, but I got this long table here that we're sitting at that hopefully one day will be in the videos for the not audio only versions of this. And I wanted to host friends. I wanted to learn how to cook, and I wanted to put pressure on myself as a hobby to learn how to cook reliably and consistently at a large number of 10 and above. And I would do it for friends. I'd be like, oh, this is super cool. We have friends over and hosting. I'm getting better at being social, but my version of being social is kicking everybody out of my kitchen and, allowing people to be comfortable in my space, but I don't participate in it until it's time to sit down and talk about the food. That's my best effort. But then I thought, wait a second, I could cook dinner for engineers, because engineers don't get good meals. They're constantly eating fast food on the run and like Wendy's on the way to the studio. Wendy's, and like I always make the joke, which is, if you're in the best writing camps, you might get sugarfish to go on the publisher's budget, and that's the best we could offer. So I thought, okay, cool, let's have them over. And then wait a second, what if we started having a conversation about how to push the audio engineers' careers forward and kind of align on what it looks like to, maybe step out a bit more and understand our values and what we need. And, the producer role is so coveted and the engineer role is seemingly the most unimportant from the outer world. A lot of people don't know what we do. So I thought it was an interesting place to come eat and chat. And then COVID-19 happened and we weren't allowed to have gatherings. Nor did I feel safe having.
How many months did it run before?
I think we had 7 or 8.
7 last year, and then 8, and then February.
Yeah, and then we had
Tony
one.
was 5.
And Tony was before the holidays,
Yeah.
and then we did one.
But we had
with
the
us.
party that was 6
or 7.
Right.
So 7 or 8.
7 or 8.
7 or 8.
Yeah.
And then, this all happened. So, I racked my head around it a lot. And because I love the hosting part, but what we've done for the podcast, because I was super uncomfortable making a podcast because I really love the live audience aspect of it, which we will hopefully get back to at some point, whether it be virtually or physically, was I still cook a meal each night for the 4 of us and soon to be guest to keep that tradition moving forward. I'll say it now, I will never order food in for this. I think
unless it's
no, I don't. I'll keep it minimal, if I have to, and if I'm too busy, there will be a meal cooked before each episode of this to some degree. Maybe it'll be leftovers, but it will at least have been cooked before. But the hosting part, I don't really know if what the question is asking fully, because that's a little bit of the history, but I don't think as an engineer or as a producer or as a musician, you need to host events in order to gain success and positioning.
This is where I was going to
but
go.
you can host one person. I mean,
yeah, but I see a kid, in the rented room in North Hollywood thinking, I don't have John's dope loft, so or I don't have a super cool studio to bring people by.
It's about creating a space. It doesn't. It's about
it's
a social environment.
Yeah, it's about reaching out and grabbing lunch and making an effort to connect with people. It's a mindset
and you paying the bill and you're all of a sudden almost the host. If you're buying someone coffee, you're hosting that occasion. I think there's this,
if you instigate it and I mean, you can, you can host a Google Hang or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's you're organizing and you're, you don't have to have big house or whatever.
Before we had the kids, I sort of regularly would have 3 lunches or dinners a week with people, Dave before I worked in the room with him, or Kyle, or different, new clients, or just, taking someone to lunch or dinner as regularly as possible to sort of, because it's fun and it's good, but you never leave the table without a new gig or a new connection or something new that you've learned.
Idea, whatever.
It's just, just the most useful thing you can do, and it's one of the great perks of the job.
Yeah.
I think,
Get it in the calendar.
Back to that thing, whoever said it, like, have you ever seen someone smiling looking at a computer screen? It's like very, very rare. Get away from it and go have coffee with a human.
Yeah.
It's
even if it's distanced.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. There's stuff you can do. It's just a good phone call or whatever, but the attitude of reaching out, of being the one in your group who does reach out, is, I think it pays dividends.
You used or he used 2 words, hosting and connection, right?
Yeah.
And I think hosting is a form of connection, right? And it's one of many ways that you can connect with peers. And the statement of you guys seem to be good at it is well practiced. I was not always good at it, and it made me very uncomfortable to have people over, especially in large amounts. And like I made the joke earlier about I stay in the kitchen. I literally stay in the kitchen most of the time, and I'm forcing people out because I can't really multitask and I can't be social and do that at the same time as cooking. And that's my way of letting other people gather in this home that I do fortunately have. And the first time I ever walked up the stairs, I said, this place needs to be shared. So that was an intentional move to connect people in the community. And it was way out of the comfort zone. So you saying like the guy that's in or the girl that's in North Hollywood in a small studio space, like maybe they should have a little studio party in their tiny room and invite 6 people and open up a good glass of wine or a 6-pack of beer and host, and the space doesn't matter, and maybe you feel like you can't do it, and I think it was hard. It was really hard in the beginning, and the first one, though so fun and clearly sparked or showcased the gap in our industry, in the music industry. It was like, wait, this is wild that we're all here. I mean, people working on some of the biggest records in the world, we're all up here. We've never met each other, and it's the best non-networking connecting event too, because you're all engineers. We're not.
There's no one to
no one's going to give you work. They have their own work. So it's purely to eat, enjoy company, talk about each other's lives, and find overlaps in how people are handling their family, life work balance, and just talking about real shit.
And all the benefits of true connection.
Depending on who you are or what your interests are, there are a whole bunch of ways to connect. So you might be the tech geek and you say, hey, let's do the converter shootout at my spot. Or you might be the player. And, I'm thinking of my friend who played with Tuesday Night Music Club, Dan Schwartz. It's like that started as that Sheryl Crow record, Tuesday Night Music Club, came out of a weekly jam at one of their studios called the Tuesday Night Music Club, where they would just hang out and play music. And so you could have a night once a month. I mean, like everything, COVID,
I know.
we know.
I'm so bummed that this can't happen. Everyone needs to know that.
But we have to make the most.
We've made an effort, and I spoke to someone today, Rika, who built Alex's studio, and she was like, COVID is awful. I've got my head down. I'm coming out of this stronger. And it's like, yes. That's the same approach that we've been taking. Everything we say is, obviously, but this podcast will live on. Kids in 1,000 years will be listening to this, obviously, on there. So we must,
persevere,
persist.
He mentioned the importance of hosting and connecting, and John, when you were mentioning the first conversation, I remember looking around and being like, this is so needed, and it felt amazing in the room, and it felt important. But it felt more important because it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And so when someone's asking, or they want to hear us speaking about the importance of something, to me, it still shows that there is that gap. Like,
there's a huge gap.
They wouldn't want to hear about it if they understood it, unless they just wanted like more perspective around it. But
the isolation's a problem.
And I think isolation's a big problem, and now it's been 10x, because of COVID. And so I think at the same time, to some people it can feel like it's been multiplied 10x, but for others, I find it's actually easier. And my clients, I'm advising, look, reach out to people online, set up calls with them, because we're all kind of home. We're most likely in our apartments or in our studios. We're pretty sedentary. We're more willing to hop on a call to connect with someone now more than ever. And it's important because, like all of the reasons you mentioned, but getting someone else's perspective on whether it's a peer of yours and you're getting perspective, or you're mentoring someone, or someone's mentoring you, or you're just connecting with family. It's part of being human. I think that's ultimately what we were trying to bring here, is like a human quality to all of the hype and all of the nonsense in the industry. So it's important on so many levels for so many reasons, but I think it's a great question, and I think it definitely brings up the fact that it has not permeated the culture.
I like questions. Spider, you had a great point today when we were talking with Sam about how working with other people and meaning. You had much better words for it than I did when we were talking today.
Oh yeah, I remember there was a time when early days in my relationship with John, when the idea of an assistant came up, and when you look at somebody working alone, it's easy to see where anyone who's doing stuff at a high level, who's really committed to getting better. I don't know if it's that general, but let me
Sounds about
rephrase
right
it.
though. Sounds
Yeah.
about right.
When we are meeting with people who do work alone, there's an obvious need for someone junior to them who's eager to learn, who's also, has some talent and, some sort of background that's necessary, that can play a role in the development of the senior person. So it's very, because what I had said earlier was that it's obvious, it's more obvious to people that the junior has something to learn from the senior, and it's less obvious to people that the senior has something to gain from the relationship with the junior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And investing in young people as part of your business model can be a very fruitful thing. And thinking about your business surviving beyond your peak years, right? In this case, it's a drumming business. It's a drummer who's recording things, right? What does that drumming business look like as Sam is getting old, right? What could it look like if there was a sort of multi-generational system in place to bring along younger people and to bring them into this successful drumming business, train, and what that junior person would provide for someone like Sam, who's a performer, is to handle the sort of technical work so that Sam can optimize for performance.
Right.
And in doing so, the business can move along quicker, right? He can make a stronger emotional connection with the music and the artist that he's working with, build stronger bonds, maybe greater success financially. And that growth curve would not be possible if he were context switching all day between performance and technical.
Yep.
And there's a tax there that people aren't really aware of, and I'd love to have a better understanding of that context switching. But that's just one of the ways that junior people can serve senior people in this sort of mutual beneficial relationship.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I couldn't have the output I have without it. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
So thinking of it as on a business front, man, that actually sounds great. And you have like 6 drummers that are, multi-genre specific experts.
And they're bringing you the cool new snare that you've never heard of. They're fired up on,
No, I know. I mean,
drum
youth-
forums looking for the new thing that you're not
I'm
gonna-
not looking.
Being young
yeah.
is a kind of superpower.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you've got, I think so often about it, everything changes when you've got family and a couple of kids. Just the amount of, I've said to you guys before that once you live abroad, you never really fit in where you land, and you can never really fit in at home. You end up sort of straddling these two worlds. I'm sort of an odd peg in both worlds now. And I feel like that with family. Once you have family, you never spend enough time with them, and you never spend enough time at work. You're always in a kind of a tension, And maybe the calendar is the key to set me free there.
I'd love to see over the next few months if you implement it. How things change.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty good with the calendar, but I'm not good with short-term discipline of I must finish this by this time, or that's that. Yeah.
I'd wonder, just coming back to the other topic, because we did that a fair amount already, but people that are my age, engineers, producers that are my age and have junior engineers, producers with them, I still feel like a junior in a sense, because I'm still finding new plugins.
You're junior to someone.
Yeah, but not. That's what I'm getting at. I mean, I'm not. Who am I junior to?
Anyone that's more experienced than you.
But I'm not directly junior to them. What I'm hearing you talking about is the assistant position, the person that's being like the mentee, right?
Yeah,
so when you're mentoring someone and they're your junior, they're in your studio on a daily basis, or at least fringe in there most of the time. That's different than I'm a junior to people that are more experienced than I, but I'm not working under someone right now that I can gain direct knowledge from.
Of course,
which I kind of crave. I don't have that.
Junior as an adjective, not as a position. Like being junior to someone just means you're younger and less experienced than some people. being their junior is
Okay, those are two. Yeah,
that's just
I mean,
that's just a semantic.
so which one are you talking about?
Well,
Because I heard position.
I was sort of moving back and forth between both meanings, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The junior and position role seems to be the one that relates more to the conversation of investing in your team, your business.
Yeah.
And I could watch every mix with the masters and attempt to learn how to make a snare sound better, and it's going to do nothing for my business, right?
Yeah.
So I can consider myself junior to everyone and go nowhere, and that sounds like complete divergence and never getting anything done because I'm constantly worrying about how my snare sounds.
Compared to
I
somebody
never worry
else's.
about how the snare sounds at all. But what I do care about is what everyone's listening to, what young people are listening to, and that's what I'd want someone like Josh or whoever the next person that we work with would do. But I still feel like that person. I still feel like a discovery human, and I'm still like, I mean, I'm not as much looking for new music, but I'm looking for new tools, and I'm
definitely
looking,
heads up.
you know, and that's the thing. Like in people that are in my position, which a fair amount of people listening to this will probably be around our age group, my age group specifically, is when you finally find that junior. I don't want to take advantage of that. Like, let them do some of the work, but also do it. You know.
And this ties. This
is
ties.
tricky.
You can't be anyone other than yourself.
It ties really
Yeah.
nicely to our conversation earlier, because the whole upside of taking time in the morning to ride on your bike and take a walk to get an espresso, and is that you have time to check a new playlist or, you know, read Pitchfork or wherever you find new music. I don't know. Check out whatever. But so often we've met people who've gotten so busy that they've burnt out because there's no new input. There's no new sounds. They do their thing on a bunch of mixes or masters or productions in a row, and then they end up empty. They're not refilling the bucket, you know, with inspiration, with love of music, you know. And it's easy. It can happen easily. So it's another upside of being conscious in how you take care of yourself. You leave room for discovery of knives and food and wine and music and good things.
But no matter how much free time John has, he'll never see the world the way Ingmar does.
Right.
Right.
No,
So Ingmar is
Yeah.
going to bring perspective and taste and all this stuff to your relationship.
Yes.
You know, so that's what I mean when you can only be yourself.
We get it all the time with the playlist that we use when we tune studios. People say, "How do you find all these songs?" It's like one from everyone like you. Every person we go to has just one. They'll play 10 things, and one we're like,
What's
add,
that?
Add that to our list.
Yeah.
That's how, you know, just
Connection.
just
Again.
connection. Yeah. So that's all three.
I just wonder, back to this junior senior thing. I don't ever not want to be a junior. You know, I kind of always want to exist in the junior because that sounds more exciting. It sounds more magical to always be kind of searching for something interesting and new and not
junior mindset.
Isn't that?
But you're still a leader for your team.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know, that's just the burden of
I know,
responsibility is
just,
yours.
No,
bro.
I know. This might be specific to. I mean, nothing is truly specific to one person, but maybe a small subset of engineers that, like, I don't know. I just kind of feel excited to be doing what I get to do, and
stay curious.
Well, I've met 25-year-olds who are over it, who are shut down.
Yeah,
who-
right.
who
That's
are-
what I mean. It's not even an age thing. It's
I think
like
of
a personality thing.
When my brother and I had a record store in Ireland, we had a client. This guy would come in. He was a retired lecturer at the university. Very well-known traditional musician, had written some books, and he was 80-something when we knew him. I'm sure he's dead now. And he was the most curious person about everything. Every new record that came in, he was buying it. He always had the latest Mac. Have you heard about the new drive from OWC? It's 400,
I bet he's
whatever.
still alive.
He might be.
Seriously, just because of that.
I remember, this
the hard
is
drives, the
this is
curiosity.
20 years ago. He had, voice to voice transcribing software, and he brought us in a text of him playing. He used to play uilleann pipes, which are like Irish bagpipes, and he had played the bagpipes and had his voice transcription software try to make sense of it, and it brought in this like free form thing, and he was just like so excited to come in and share this with us, just like giddy with life.
Yeah.
And So age isn't the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's curiosity. I mean,
Yeah.
senior, junior, whatever.
And it's
Yeah.
also circumstance. Like if you haven't developed the processes and you're 25 and you're taking on too much or
Yes.
you're not getting paid enough or whatever,
Yeah.
you could burn out at 25 or 30. And maybe you just have more stamina. And so you get to 35, but you still don't have the processes or the budget or whatever. Like age isn't the thing. It's really the context of everything else around you.
Yeah,
You know?
totally.
It's sort of a game changer for a lot of people because what we come into contact with are people who can't imagine actually achieving a level of business where they can float an assistant, which means they're not oriented in their career from the beginning, assuming that they will build to having an assistant, and that's what the job looks like. And maybe it doesn't for everybody, but whatever. We're talking about mix engineers in a way, right? But it applies to mastering. It applies to other things. I mean, producer assistant.
Yeah.
You know,
It applies to many
it
disciplines.
applies to anything where school doesn't work.
Yeah, right.
Right, where it's an apprentice type trade, where, like Tony Maserati says all the time, it's never going to be in a book,
Yeah.
and it's your job to pass it on. It's when someone, whether they're a drummer or a mix engineer, and they're young and they're coming up and they're sort of making it in LA, but maybe barely. I do understand that sounds like a heavy lift to hire an assistant. But the benefits are insane, are massive.
I hired an assistant when I couldn't afford to hire the assistant.
Yeah.
And it made my life better. So there was different value that
Yeah.
came. There was still a struggle. It was probably at the first time where maybe I could pay my rent and go out to eat twice a week, or like there was like a little bit of headroom, very little bit.
Yeah.
And then that clamped down on the headroom. But I was able to spend more time with my girlfriend at the time. I was able to go out with you and get, Aroma Cafe or something and just chat about what the session was like. Or there was a bit more socializing that was able to be done and connection building that was able to be done because I invested in that. So I didn't have to do that. And then what you're talking about specifically is kind of that mix prep, session prep for productions. Like all the technicalities get out of the way, the color coding, the arranging, the organizing, the finding of files. So when you're actually in there being creative, you get to have that, like we talked about earlier, the emotional connection. There's less friction with that. And the friction that comes from it is the good type of friction that you want, the push and pull. So the investment is...
It's in personal freedom.
Yes.
You invest in another person so that you can be free to develop who you are.
Yes.
And you can only do that when you have other people handling certain things.
In turn, offering that value back to them as you learn. You're constantly in this dialogue with them,
Yes, the
mentoring.
dialogue.
So there's value to that on top of the very low monetary compensation that you're able to give them.
And people,
until you can give them more,
until you can
and
exactly.
you build it together. And then this is what Rory was bringing up earlier: is that instead of your day, the meaning being, I'm going to go into my back house to generate cash.
Yes.
It's your day involves something deeper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? It's the well-being of another human and your collective well-being, your mutual well-being. And so your motivation and, I would love to have a more detailed sort of way of talking about this because the intuition is so strong about it. And when it's in practice, it's what I like about the question that we're bringing to people when we're talking about workflow and how this room could run. And then we bring up, well, if you had someone in the driver's seat, if you had, an assistant in the driver's seat, then you could do this. It forces people to think about their businesses differently.
I think we want to sit with a psychologist and talk about, all of this stuff in terms of collaboration and other people in the room and what it means, like shared adversity versus dealing with it on your own.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a lot we could learn, just like we were talking about, learning how the ear really works and using that to make better records. Learning how
relationships work.
really work, because some of what we might intuit isn't always
No, that's really interesting.
useful.
Especially this multi-generational sort of
Yes.
hierarchical relationships.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to know more.
Something that I've been banging on a friend of mine for 3 or 4 years now, who's like, session prep takes forever, but I don't trust anyone else, or I don't want to pay for it. And I keep saying, you have this...
You're paying for it anyway.
Yeah, but you have this incredible studio. Forget everything else. Forget what you know and what you can teach them. You've got more gear than they have. You've got better speakers. You've got a faster computer. Yes. You've got a couple of compressors, whatever it is. They need access to that, and you can do them a favor by, you finish at 6. If they session prep for you tomorrow by 8, after 8, they can do whatever they want until the sun comes up, until you rock in again, whatever. So there's always a way to figure it out. I think people feel like, I imagine an assistant gets paid X a year and I don't have X to pay. But there's other ways.
Yes.
And not, people need to be aware of the value they
look
can
at
bring.
what people are paying for engineering school.
Yes.
It's work for free, man. Fuck.
Yeah,
You're going to pay all that money? Like,
Yeah.
This, this does tie to the, a topic we could get into, which is this self-development versus mutual development.
I love this.
Yeah. This has really got my attention right now. So I just want to plant that seed.
I actually think that's a great place to end.
Yeah.
You got anything, Mike?
No.
All right.
Love you guys.
Yeah, that was great.
I'm glad that we connect.
Yeah.
And,
Let's
add it that next week and all, work it out in our minds over the next week.
Yeah.
Done. All right. Cool. Peace.
Can't wait.
All right.
good night.
Conversations is produced and mixed by Dylan Seals. The Conversations theme was performed and recorded by the Hazelrick Brothers.